There's pressure on the UK's energy sector. Wholesale prices are soaring. First, let's hear from the UK's Business Secretary.
We have sufficient capacity and more than sufficient capacity to meet demand, and we do not expect supply emergencies to occur this winter. There is absolutely no question, Mr. Speaker, of the lights going out.
The lights won't go out, says the government, but the pressure is real. Wholesale gas prices have risen by 250% since January. They rose by over 70% in August alone. But the regulator caps how much consumers can be charged, so the pressure stays with the energy providers. 4 smaller energy companies have gone out of business in the past 2 weeks. 4 more are expected to go in days, and others are at risk, such as the firm Green Energy.
You know, it's almost apocalyptic with how bad it could get. You know, I think with our latest models, we're not going to, in the current market, as it is, we're not going to see it through the winter. If it gets worse, then, that timescale gets shortened.
Which leads us to, why is this happening? Well, here's the BBC's political editor, Laura Kunsberg, tweeting that Boris Johnson told reporters on the way to New York, this is a result of the world waking up from pandemic shutdowns, like everyone going to put the kettle on at the end of the TV programme. And then this is the Prime Minister in New York.
What you're basically seeing is it's like when there's been a serious frost in your house and all the pipes are frozen. Then the big thaw comes, and that's when you have the problems and the leaks and all the difficulties. And that's really what's happening to the global economy.
Mr. Johnson's argument being that as the global economy picks up after the pandemic, it has created issues for gas supply. Well, let's work through the factors that we're aware of here. First of all, supply is certainly an issue. It was a particularly cold winter in Europe, and lockdowns meant people spent more time at home than normal. That meant use of gas was higher. Let's take Spain, for example. Gas storage levels fell from 51% to 35% in 1 week in January. Asia is relevant too. During the winter, demand for gas there hit record highs again in January. That meant more gas than usual being directed to Asia, gas that might otherwise have stayed in Europe's reserves. On this, here's the head of the trade association, Energy UK.
We are reliant on a volatile international commodity in the UK because we're highly dependent on gas, both in our own homes where we burn it for heat, and we do that at a level, beyond our European neighbours. So when we get an unprecedentedly high price, there are unprecedented impacts on the market.
That's one dimension of the supply issue, and here is another, and it's political. This is the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. It runs from Russia to Germany through the Baltic Sea, and when working, it will double the supply of Russian gas to Europe. But despite it being ready, Germany, Poland and Ukraine have not given it the OK. They're worried about giving Moscow political leverage. Last month, for example, Angela Merkel warned of sanctions if Moscow uses gas as a political weapon. So no Nord Stream 2 supply yet. And while we wait for that, Russia's supply to Europe has fallen to just 1/5 of pre-pandemic levels. Now, Russia says its own demands have increased, but not everyone sees it that way. Last week, 40 members of the European Parliament called for an inquiry into the Russian firm Gazprom. It controls the current Nord Stream pipeline. These MEPs are concerned it's manipulating current prices to try and pressurise Europe to sign off the opening of Nord Stream 2, something Gazprom denies. So lots of factors, but there's no doubt Europe's reserves and supply are down. And when pressures develop on traditional energy sources, at the moment, there's a lack of alternatives. Renewables just aren't ready yet to fill that gap, something the UK government acknowledges.
The UK is still too reliant on fossil fuels. Our exposure to volatile global gas prices underscores the importance of our plan to build a strong, homegrown renewable energy sector to strengthen our energy security into the future.
These are some of the factors. There's something else, though, that people are asking about. Brexit. Is this a factor in explaining the UK's situation? Is the UK more exposed than the EU on this? Well, I asked the BBC's business editor, Simon Jack.
The UK is suffering more than the EU in this particular crisis, but it is not primarily due to Brexit. There are some UK-specific factors here which are meaning that you're seeing a bigger spike in prices here than you are in Europe. For example, You've got the wind power. Wind power is a big part of the UK's energy mix, and it actually hasn't been that windy over the last few weeks. You've had outages from the ageing fleet of nuclear power stations here in the UK, and some of the maintenance on North Sea gas platforms that was meant to happen was being pushed back because of COVID. That's taken some of them out. And to cap it all, there was a fire at a substation at one end where a pipeline brings in energy from the EU. Now, sometimes that can come in to smooth out spikes. That's not happening as much, and therefore you get this really unprecedented spike. It's more than tripled the wholesale price since the beginning of the year, and that has caught a lot of companies very, very off guard who were not predicting something like this and put them in really dire straits.
And what about Boris Johnson's explanation that the global economy is thawing out after the frost of the pandemic? Does that help explain what's happening? Here's Simon again.
I mean, there is a certain amount of truth in the fact that when you have had a world economy in deep freeze and you literally switch the heating on, the economic engines of growth starting again, you are going to see a very big surge in demand for energy, and we have seen that. But what he did not acknowledge is there are some very UK-specific issues here. One of it being reliance on wind, which can be intermittent. You've got an ageing nuclear fleet. You've got maintenance going on in the North Sea. You've got fires going on in substations, for pipelines coming in. So you've got all sorts of additional UK-specific factors. And actually, the wholesale price of gas in the UK is roughly double what it is in the EU. So for him to brush this off as saying, well, everyone's going through it, is not quite right.